Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. In this video, we're looking at the Thursday slate. We have 5 games on tap for tonight for Draftkings and Fanduel. So let's get started. It's starting at 7:30, so we have a half hour extra to make sure our lineups are situated. Hopefully, we don't get any late scratches like Roby yesterday, as that was really frustrating, as he was one of the more popular players. Um, but yeah, I guess that type of stuff has just been happening in NBA. Not all this time, but with a lot of games being postponed late, just been a pretty crazy season so far. But let's get into it. As always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I will kind of go a bit quickly as there's only 5 games, but just kind of give you guys what I like here. So point guard options, 2 guys above $9,000, Lillard and Steph Curry. I like Lillard more than Curry. Uh, both guys look really good though. If you wanted to try to get to at least one, Lillard still without McCollum hasn't been as productive as you would have thought. Some games he doesn't get a ton of rebounds. Some games he doesn't get a ton of assists. The scoring has typically been there every single game without McCollum. Price tag is definitely increased. Curry will probably be lower owned, so it's going to be different in tournaments. Like he's flashed like a similar ceiling, if not higher ceiling than Lillard at times this season with a couple 70 burgers in his recent game log. Shooting has been on point. 3-point percentage has been off the charts. 50% from three over the past like 5 games, shooting insanely great right now, averaging like 60 drafting points in his last 5 games, or like 56. So he's been great. He's definitely be lower owned than Lillard if you wanted to take a shot. Van Fleet is probably not a guy I'll get to at 8,500. I like Lowry. It's a matchup is tough against Boston, so especially if Anunoby's back, just another extra body for them. But I'd probably lean to Lowry given how well he's played recently and the fact that he's like $1,200 cheaper. Simmons typically a guy that I don't really ever play unless Embiid is out, and even sometimes Embiid's missed, he hasn't been great. So probably will not play him again at 83 just because Embiid takes so much rebounds, take a lot of his scoring. So I'd rather go to a cheap player on the Sixers than pay up for Ben Simmons. Brogdon, pretty poor performance the entire team. He did get up to 35 minutes though, but another terrible shooting game from him. 5 of 17. It's like kind of been the typical norm for him recently. He's been struggling with his shot. Thought the matchup against the Nets would definitely solve some things. It did not. So the matchup against Detroit now, they're a team that will allow you to score some points. Hopefully they can keep it close so this game turns into a game that we can kind of get both sides of. I don't mind Brogdon. Lowry looks probably a little bit better to me just because he's played better, and the minutes, for him are going to be 37, 38 in close games. Kemba's been really bad recently, 6,500. You just can't buy a shot right now. The price tag is definitely a little bit enticing. I think he looks better on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings, but on DraftKings, like he can blow this $6,500 price tag out of the water if he has one of his normal shooting games. John Wall, 7,100. He looks decent as well. So there's plenty of options that are cheap today at point guard that we can go to. You have DeLon Wright, who's been playing great at 63. Trading with Derrick Rose is going to help just solidify his minutes, being in the high 30s every game at least. Dennis Smith will have to play some, but he hasn't played at all this season, so he'll probably be limited in his first game. So I do like DeLon Wright at 63. Matched up against the Pacers, not a terrible one. At home, Pistons been playing teams a lot closer recently, so that's a good sign. Then you have Gordon, who I won't play with Oladipo back for this one. Hero, haven't been getting to him much. Now that Butler's back, and then you have Nunn at 58, who, Butler's just taking so much of the rebounds and assists that Nunn has kind of, even though he's listed at point guard, he doesn't play with the ball in his hands a ton. And then Shake Milton is doubtful, so we can look to Tyrese Maxey as a cheap play from the Sixers, who will probably play in the 20s in minutes, and he looks to be one of the better value plays right now. At shooting guard, we have Van Fleet, 85, but definitely probably won't get to him. Oladipo's looks fine. It's tough to get to Oladipo over John Wall, I think, on DraftKings, given the $700 difference. And both guys take a bit away from each other in terms of usage, but without Christian Wood, there's still going to be a lot of scoring to go around. So I'd lean to Wall, but I don't hate Oladipo, given that there's not a ton of spend-ups at this position. I don't think I'll get to Powell definitely won't get to Powell if he's coming off the bench with Anunoby back, or they could even start Powell because he's been playing great. Wouldn't be surprised if they continue to roll with him in the starting lineup. They've been winning. with him in there, and he's been playing just great. So we'll see how the starting lineup looks if Anunoby's back. Heroes not a guy I'll get to at 6,400. Wiggins just been okay. He hasn't been doing great. Typically, what you get from Wiggins is a pretty empty stat line minus the scoring, and the scoring has also been down. The assists and rebounds are going to be hard to get when you have Steph Curry out there and Draymond, Draymond's just been getting a ton of assists and rebounds. So not a lot of peripherals to go around for Wiggins, even for Kelly Oubre. Fournier, if he's in, definitely be a guy that I don't think I'll play, but it'll take away from some of the value that we can look to on the Magic. So keep an eye on him. Also, Cole Anthony is questionable if he happens to play. He's only 5,400. If Fournier's still out, then he would look pretty interesting. Josh Jackson, 58, is a decent tournament option. Trent at 6,000. He's okay. He takes a ton of shots. Like, he's really just taking as many shots as McCollum would. He could be a decent option at 6,000. He's not jumping off the pages, though. Sixers pretty good defensively. And then I think you can go cheap here with, like, Seth Curry looks decent at 47, but you have, like, Maxey, $1,500 cheaper on DraftKings. Damian Lee looks good as a value option at 3,800. So shooting guard is not particularly deep. I will think I can go cheap here with a Tyrese Maxey, who's super cheap at 3,200 and will probably soak up a lot of the backup point guard minutes. So shooting guard, a few guys that I am interested in at least are Maxey for cheap, and then like Trent, just because there's nobody else really that looks appealing in the 6K range. And then depending on Fournier and Anthony News, you could look to Ross at 53, and mainly it. Small forward, Jimmy Butler has been almost getting a triple-double every single game since the past few. He had 26, 10, and 8, 17, 9, and 10, 14, 9, and 8, 19, 9, and 8. Been really just kind of the assists have been really nice. He has like 8 or more assists in like 6 or 7, something really nice. Rebounds have been there. Minutes are really high. The matchup here against Houston, their defense started off really well, and then they've kind of been allowing teams to score some points recently. So I definitely don't mind paying 84 for Butler at small forward when, Ben Simmons is the other guy that's above 8,000. I'd rather go to Butler for sure. Then you have a couple guys in the 7K range. Brown, who was finally back from missing a few games. He looked really good. Price tag is 77. It's still fair. He said his knee was bothering him a bit in the second half. So I don't know if, still a little bit of a risk that something doesn't creep up on him. Grant, I think, looks great at 74 against Indiana. He's just been the guy for Detroit this season, scoring, rebounds, even getting some assists recently. The steals and blocks are there. He's a great defensive player. The minutes are huge right now. So 74, I can definitely feel pretty good about paying that price tag for Jeremy Grant. I like him more than Tobias, than Pascal. And then the 6K range, you have Draymond, who can flirt with the triple-double. It's a good matchup against Orlando. He looks decent. I like him more than Kelly Oubre. Oubre's been shooting a lot better over his last 5 games. He's made half of his threes, which is definitely a good sign. So he's in play if you're making a bunch of teams, just because he has a big-time ceiling. Covington, revenge spot against his former team, is 5,900. Minutes are there. He looks decent on DraftKings, but I think you could go to, Derek Jones, who is only 3,800. Then I won't get to Carmelo. Blake looks alright, but I'd rather go to Grant or Wright or even Plumlee. So, at this position, if you're going cheap here, I think you got to consider Derek Jones Jr. starting once again for the team. They said he wasn't on a minutes limit last game and he played 29, so you're probably going to get mid to high 20s. He can get into the 30s if he's playing well, and he's a guy that in some games he will struggle and get you in the single digits, so he is a little risky, but the price tag at only 38 is definitely cheap enough to where the ceiling and upside that he possesses, which is in the high 20s fantasy points, is definitely worth it, I think, at 38, given the lack of value right now. Then center options, like Nick Vucevic looks excellent at 94. Got to consider Embiid as well. He's almost 11,000 though, so I'd probably take the savings on Vucevic. Sabonis looks decent as well at 8,800. And then you have In the cheap range, you have like Cantor at 7,000. I don't want to play him against Embiid. Cousins 6,900. Like the moment people stop playing Cousins is when he goes nuts. So he's always gonna be in a player pool, just given how much upside he has without Wood. But it's getting a little bit tough to. It's getting a little bit annoying to trust him every single night. Plumlee looks good at 61 just because the minutes are there. They're gonna need him out there against Sabonis and Turner. Turner, on the other hand, is 6,200. I think Plumlee looks better, but also in play. And then for cheap plays, no cheap center looks very interesting right now. I will go with Vucevic at 9,400. And then the last guy is going to be Jimmy Butler at 8,400. He's been flirting with a triple-double. I feel like it's a matter of time before he actually gets that triple-double. And I think a matchup against Houston should be a competitive game with Houston being healthy, with at least besides Christian Wood, with them having Wall and Oladipo there. Should be a close game. And Butler, if he gets that triple-double, will probably get high, like maybe close to 60 DraftKings points. So he's been playing a lot more aggressive and having the ball in his hands a lot more. So still leaves you with 57.50. If you want to use the value plays in Jones and Maxey, I think hopefully they can both have good games. And pretty much it for the DraftKings side. Go ahead and talk about Fanduel now. All right, on Fanduel here, point guard options, it's Lillard and Curry once again is the two most expensive guys. Probably Lillard will get a lot more ownership than Curry. Both guys have been playing good basketball, especially Curry. You have some cheaper plays here, like Kyle Lowry is in the low 7K range, Brogdon, DeLon Wright in the 6K range, and 55 for Kemba Walker is going to be a guy that people go to, and I think that price tag is still worth a shot. So don't mind Kemba at 55 if Cole Anthony's in. He looked good at 5,400. And like Kendrick Nunn's, his floor is pretty low with Butler getting a ton of assists. And then if Anthony's out, maybe we can look to Frank Mason. But I think I will lean to DeLon Wright, just given the fact that he's playing a lot more minutes now without Derrick Rose. Even though Smith should be back, should make his debut tonight. I don't see him taking a ton of minutes. Maybe he'll take some away from Wayne Ellington. Shooting guard, Van Fleet is going to be impossible for me to get to at 9,300. That price tag has to come down. Oladipo looks all right, just because there's not a ton of pay-up options here. Powell, depending on if he's starting or not, will be somewhat interesting. And then you have Trent, looks all right. Shooting guard is definitely tough on FanDuel today. We'll definitely need some news from Orlando before we can plug in $5,200 Terrence Ross. Ellington is cheap, but the minutes have also come down since he's missed a few, and then he was limited. Well, not limited, but he didn't play much last game. I think with Maxey being 39 and Curry being 41, I feel like Seth Curry is a guy that I can feel decent about targeting just because the position is pretty weak. He's finally starting to come back around. He struggled for a few games in terms of his scoring. He wasn't even scored a point in like 8 quarters, and then last few he's been solid. Guy that's pretty streaky, so and without Shake Noah, maybe he'll get into the 30s in minutes. Small forward, it's definitely Jimmy Butler looks appealing. Jeremy Grant looks great. I won't get to 9,600 Pascal. And then you have Oubre in the mid 6K range. 5K range, nobody that looks that appealing to me. And then Jones is like 45, so he's kind of priced where he should be on FanDuel. Ennis, if they're very limited, will be somewhat interesting. And then that's mainly it. Like I don't really play Danny Green when the Sixers are healthy. I'll go back to it's between Butler and Grant as my pay-up. Probably go to Jimmy Butler. Power forward here, it's Sabonis and Tatum as your two pay-up options, and Adebayo. Probably go Sabonis, Tatum, Adebayo in that order. Then in the cheap plays range, you have Chris Boucher is 6,400, Covington is 6,000. So probably one of the two 6K guys look good. And then 5K range, it's Blake and Tate. Neither one is that appealing. If I was paying up, I think I'll go for Sabonis. Hope that he bounces back tonight. And then center options, it's Vucevic. A little bit more expensive on FanDuel at 98, and Embiid is the same price tag. So Could see some people going Embiid. I still think Vucevic looks better, just $1,000 cheaper. And then if you wanted to spend down, Plumlee is 7,000, so he's tough to get to on FanDuel. Turner is also expensive at 68. I think you gotta. I mean, at least I will go back to Boogie Cousins on FanDuel at least at 6,000. He's cheap. The minutes are still up and down depending on how he's playing, but he was playing so bad they didn't even deserve minutes. They were getting things were turning around in the third quarter, and then they had to change up the lineup and they played a bit smaller to kind of get back in, and they did. And then Boogie didn't play much at all. I don't think he came back into the game once he left in the third. He's a guy that the minutes are fluctuating, but if he's playing good basketball and against a team that plays Adebayo, plays Olynyk, two big guys, I feel like Cousins is going to be out there, and hopefully it's a spot where some people jump off and then Cousins goes nuts. 6,000 is still too cheap for a guy that has like 20+% usage, like averaging 1.2 plus Draftkings points per minute or FanDuel points per minute. So that's it for this one. 5 games, not a ton to talk about, but it is somewhat interesting. Hopefully we'll get some clarity on the Orlando news. And that's it for today, so thanks for watching. Best of luck today.